A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Good morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Welcome to the show.
All right, so you get to see her soon. But yes, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what the dailies do have today. And we've got Chiwe Maduagu, who is editor of the Next Edition, to take us through some of those dailies. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, Ayo.
Let's start with Vanguard newspaper. They're continuing on insecurity. That's their theme today. Storm over governor's request for bailout. Remember, after they had met with the president. So they, I think Vanguard reported yesterday. I think another Daily Trust, I guess, reported that the governors were requesting for some sort of bailout, a security fund, as it were. But now, Vanguard is saying that, look, there's a huge storm about this.
Yeah, I think there should be a huge storm about it. You know, the governors seem to think that there's a cache of money somewhere, that whenever they have a problem, they run to the government, and then the government doles it out to them. But have they accounted for the previous bailouts that they got from government? That's the point. And that, I think, is what the people are not happy about. It's not about giving them money. What have they done with the money that has been given to them previously? If we have an account, then we will know whether they deserve the bailout or not. They don't just wake up and say, give us money, and then government does this out. That's not fair to Nigerians. That's not fair to the taxpayers. And as they make these requests, government goes a borrowing. And they mortgage our future.
But look at some of the riders. I think they address some of your concerns. Let governors account for previous bailouts. This is from Pandev.
Okay.
Insecurity, not about bailouts. Afenifere, don't give governors money. Aligbo Foundation. Lasting solution needed, not bailouts. YCE, their demand in order. Ayo Adebanjo, let responsible Nigerians carry arms. Oh, Tom, so throwing that into the equation, you just wonder, what's going on here?
Yeah, a lot, really. You would agree, Chamberlain, that insecurity has been a huge problem. You would also agree that this government came into power on the basis that it's going to address insecurity. Now, so many years down the line, the first term is over. The second term is a year, almost a year. Insecurity remains the major problem we have. So I agree with those who say bailout is not the problem. You know, what has government done, both federal and at state level, with all the monies they've had at their disposal to fight this? I think, like some people have said previously, we need to rethink the strategy. And I also agree with those who have said, change the service chiefs. You can't keep doing the same thing every time, every day, and expect new results. No. Why don't we bring in fresh eyes, fresh ideas, and see what would happen with the security situation in the country?
But you know, what about those who think that, fine, if you do that, what about the major infrastructure? What are they going to work with? Isn't it the same system and settings that they will work with?
Now, if we bring in those new people, we can now begin to look at equipping them, the infrastructure. You know, I'll also ask the question, the ones that we have here now, the service chiefs, the government, what have they done with the infrastructure at their disposal? Recently, the president said that it is not true that Boko Haram has more money and better equipment than the military. So if that came from the president, then who are we to doubt that he knows what he's talking about? So again, it might not be the infrastructure at their disposal.
All right, look at this one at the bottom strip. My Life as Boko Haram claims heavy must be probed. Northern Governors Forum. DSS invites, squeezes, frees him. And then he even spoke yesterday, which perhaps we'll see much later, where, well, this is where it is at the moment. We don't know if they're going to take it any further from here.
Yeah, I think they should take it further. You know, for somebody like Malaifa to come out and say that a governor is sponsoring Boko Haram, I don't think we should take it lightly. He didn't wake up to say that.
But he said that's what he was told by one of those retired or repentant...
Boko Haram,
yeah.
yes. So for him to come out to say it, I want to believe that when he was told that, he did a little investigation on his own. He asked questions. A man of his caliber won't just come and make such a statement, accuse a governor of sponsoring Boko Haram based on what a repentant Boko Haram terrorist said to him. So I think the EFCC has taken the right step in inviting him. He spent 6 to 7 hours with them yesterday. So I think they should take it further. I want to believe that he would have told them, certain things that we are not yet privy to. So we'll just watch and see how it goes.
Well, that is going to be really interesting. But another matter which may just jeopardize security, depending on how you look at it, is this one. It's just above the lead story. INEC, NGO, task Edo youths on violence as Obaseki Izeyamu intensify campaigns. Can we have an election devoid of violence?
Chamberlain, in Nigeria at this point, I honestly don't see it happening.
Why not?
Because, the orientation we have is that politics is a do or die affair.
Oh dear.
I believe, we still haven't gotten our politics right. People go into politics not because they want to serve, not because they have a plan. That's my thinking, and that's what I have seen. Not because they have a plan to improve your life and my life or the man on the street. They're looking for what they will get for themselves.
Can we say the same thing of everyone in politics?
Not everyone, but majority. Majority. So that makes it difficult for the sincere ones to be seen or heard.
And that's curious because, the laws do not validate that. The laws are actually clear about the functions of government and the functions of politics and politicians and all of that. So is there a lacuna that's been taken care of?
The laws. Yes, our problem is not the law. Our problem is enforcing the law. Okay? We have a plethora of laws, that say if you commit this offense, this is what should happen to you. But how many people have we really seen punished for electoral violence? Are we saying that we have not witnessed violence in our elections? No. But how many have been published? And yet we have the laws. So right now, and look at what is going on in Edo. Look at what is going on. Unbelievable. So that's why I say it's about themselves, not you and I.
All right. FEC asks finance minister to deduct at source allocation of states guilty of double taxation. Just so you know, it's also on the front page. Let me quickly go through this one on the back page. Vanguard Sports here. Ahead of Champions League clash versus Bayern, Barca players test positive for COVID-19. Well, PSG survive Atalanta. Atalanta scared. That was a close one, really. So, football lovers, you can go check that out. That's Vanguard this morning.
The Nigerian Tribune leads with Magu cries over fair hearing, lawyer writes salami panel. Our story is on page 9. One would have thought that with how far so far, this would have come under the radar for a bit.
Yeah, the Magu matter. From the letter which the president wrote setting up the panel investigating him, it was supposed to be a public hearing. But so far, they've done their proceedings, their hearings in secret, not allowing journalists in. So I quite sympathize with Magu, who is crying out, seeking for fair hearing. In as much as we want to see somebody dealt with for corruption, I think due process should be followed. I think everybody deserves fair hearing. Magu is not an exception.
Right, this one also, of course, the DSS Malafia story is also on the front page. and a number of others like that. But you also look at this one right above the nameplate, rumble in Unilag over sack of VC. I remain VC, Ogundipe. ASU, SANU, others react. Not yet informed, Education Ministry says. What do you make of this? It's back and forth.
Honestly, Ayo, since yesterday, I've actually been thinking about this Unilag issue. Yes, the council, the registrar said he's been removed. The VC came out and said, no, I have not been removed. The Federal Ministry of Education issued a statement that the council has the right to hire and fire as long as due process is followed. ASU says no. The Unilag ASU says no, council cannot do that. There's a lot of confusion, but I want to believe that there is a law that states how a vice chancellor of the university should be removed. Okay? Now, has council followed that law? If council has done that, I don't think the VC has any choice. I don't think so. If that has not been done, then he remains the VC until the needful it's done. That's my take on it.
Wow, interesting. Well, that's the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Malwe?
Well, thank you, Ayo. Looking at The Guardian for you now. Look at this one. Federal government denies placing order for Russian vaccine. Yes, this is coming on the heels of that declaration by Russia that they now have a vaccine for COVID-19. Let's quickly take a look at the riders there. It says, Nigerian doctors hail scientists. New experimental COVID-19 drug prevents disease in mice. U.S. government strikes $1.525 billion deal for 100 million doses of vaccine. FEC okays $8.49 billion for tests in local governments. That story continues on page 2 for you. But when you take a look at it and you look holistically at all that we've done with the COVID-19 battle so far, and well, this should we say this is a denial now, or this is just a rebuttal of what some people think has happened? What do you make of the fight against COVID-19 so far?
So far, I would say so good, even though I might add that there's still a lot that people don't understand about COVID and the fight against it. There are conflicting signals. Sometimes they say COVID-19 testing has arrived in all the local governments in the Federation. Again, they say, no, it is, they've not done that in all the local governments. But I think so far the government has tried. The NCDC, I must really commend, especially the DG and the PTF, in their efforts to inform Nigerians. But beyond that, excuse me, beyond that, I believe that a lot still needs to be done. I was in the East a couple of weeks back, and people there seemed not to be bothered about the disease, about the pandemic. So I asked myself, is it that enough enlightenment has not been carried out, or what? Government should look into that area and see what is missing. People need to know and they need to believe that COVID-19 is real.
Would you say that we should try this vaccine from Russia?
I'm not a doctor, Mark, so I honestly cannot say we should try it or not. I think the... Exactly, I think that should be left to the doctors. Even if we want to try it, I want to believe that they will test it. They have to run a test on it themselves, those who know. Okay, it's not something somebody like me off the street will say, let's try it or let's not try it.
Okay, well, let's look at some stories at the bottom of the paper here. You see there, federal government mobilizes flights to evacuate Nigerians from UAE. Yes, the United Arab Emirates has given a deadline we've been seeing a return of a lot of our citizens from that particular country. Look at this one. It's politics. Lukman alleges plot to return Oshomole as APC chairman. Do you think that we've heard the last of the tussle we've seen in the APC for the leadership of the party?
Politics in Nigeria is unpredictable. Anything and everything is possible. Okay, so if tomorrow I see Oshomole returned as the national chairman of APC, I won't be surprised. That's just Nigerian politics for you, okay? I believe it's a matter of who is backing you. If you have the right backing, you can do, you can undo, and nothing will happen. Yeah, that's politics in Nigeria, and that's just it, Maokbe. So anything is possible.
Let's leave it there for the Guardian newspapers.
Well, take a look at Daily Trust. They're bringing us back to earth. COVID-19. They say COVID-19 hits 586 local government areas. Experts blames citizens' non-compliance to guidelines. FEC approves 8.4 billion naira for test kits. Health workers threaten strike over welfare. You know, even the writers too are equally instructive, because first, health workers, experts blaming citizens' non-compliance, but that cannot be the sole reason why this is spreading. Do you agree with them completely?
Not really. Well, to a large extent, I agree that the non-compliance on the part of citizens is a major problem. You know, like I just said, I was in the East a few weeks back, and they are not bothered. They don't wear face masks.
What about the why part of why they're not bothered?
That's what I said. Is it that they have not been properly instructed or enlightened? So I think a lot of education still needs to go into this COVID-19 pandemic.
But the issue of non-compliance by citizens is even global. Everyone, it's like almost every nation in the world is battling with that.
Yes, every nation. So where does that leave us? Because at the end of the day, it's the people that will die from the pandemic. Okay? So we have, I think there are penalties for non-compliance. Is the government ready to enforce the penalties? Maybe if we see one or two people who have been penalized for non-compliance, others will fall in line. You know, human beings are very difficult to deal with, to understand. Even when it is in their own best interests, you still need to force them to do certain things. So you ask yourself why. I ask myself why.
Well, I see as well here, FEC approves 8.4 billion naira for test kits. I mean, this money is now, one wonders, however it's being utilized. Can questions be asked about it? Anything about accounts?
Questions should be asked. You know, we started with giving account of monies, you know, that are given to governments, institutions, and parastatals. I know that a lot of money has gone into this COVID-19 pandemic in this country. And I also know that the private sector raised a whole lot of money towards tackling this pandemic. So where is this one coming from again? This huge amount for test kits. Meanwhile, the health workers are complaining that they don't have the necessary equipment they need to protect themselves. So what have we been doing with the previous monies that have been, you know, laid out to tackle this disease?
Well, I see this image here. Members of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association, that's Pengasin, protest over non-payment of their 3-month salary in Abuja yesterday. But look at this one. Squeeze older generation out of power. Obasanjo tells youths. Can we ask where this is coming from too?
Yeah, well, we can. You know, the thing is, we like to speak from hindsight, okay? And so we can also ask OBJ the question, how much opportunity did he give the youth in his own time? But it's good he's making, he's trying to guide the youth aright at this point in time. I think the older generation should give the youth a chance. But then again, in politics, nobody hands you anything. You have to fight for it. You have to work for it. So I also ask the question, are our youths ready to take over this? The youth, they make up a large number of the citizens in this country. So if the youths make up their mind that they want to take over from the older generations, I think they can. But are they interested? What I see sometimes really scares me.
What do they need to change?
The youths.
Yeah. To put them in good position so that people can say, one, they're interested, they're ready, they want to.
Well, first of all, we have political parties. They have to belong to political parties. You don't just jump off the street and say you want to take over power. So they have to start from the grassroots. We all come from wards, local governments, even if you live outside your state. So they have to be in the political system and then grow. Politics, like I said, you don't just jump in at the top. Okay. You have to start from somewhere.
The Daily Times newspaper this morning leads with Ogoni cleanup, endless wait for restoration and fair play. That story is on page 2. It's an endless wait, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's taking years. We keep hearing Ogoni cleanup, and so the question is, when is it going to end? We don't even know how far they've gone with the cleanup.
Does that question sincerity or of intention?
It definitely does. It definitely does. What are all the parties involved doing? What is government doing to ensure that this cleanup is done? Because it's the responsibility of government to secure the lives and property, livelihood of the citizens. So, if this thing is dragging, if those who are to clean up this mess are not doing what they're supposed to do, what is the government doing to ensure that they do what they need to do?
Okay. Well, there are other stories on the front page of the Daily Times newspaper. Judiciary, parties deregistration, INEC to probe Supreme Court over conflicting judgments. But let's leave it there for the Daily Times this morning. Okay.
Well, let's quickly take a look at Nigerian News Direct. They have this one for you. Illegal taxes on mining operations. Federal government to deduct allocations of states, local government councils. Double taxation driving out investors, is according to Lai Mohammed. It's on page 3 of the paper. What do you make of this? The fact that states are now getting more involved, and there has been some attempt to bring sanity into the mining sector. Would you really say that we are making progress in that regard?
Well, taxation is a problem. Let me start from there. Whether at the state level or at the federal level, whether companies or individuals, taxation is an issue. Why should somebody be taxed twice for the same thing? So if states are double taxing, the federal government has the right or the power to deduct at source. But, my problem is not federal government recovering this money. At the end of the day, what happens to this money? That is what bothers me, okay? What does government do with all this money? We don't feel it. When I say we, I mean the man on the street, okay? Struggling every day to eke out a living. How can government use this money to impact positively on their lives? If government is going to deduct this money and somebody else will pocket it, it's of no use to you and I. So, but I think government really should look into that double taxation. It's not fair.
Let's leave it there for the paper this morning. We're almost out of time. Chamberlain.
All right, then. So there you go. That's a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We've been speaking with Chinwe Maduagu, who is the editor of the next edition. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so We'll be back in just a moment. Do stay with us.
The issue of security in the Northeast is the central focus of this meeting as the Governor of Borno State visits the Chief of Air Staff in Abuja. After being received by his host, the Governor makes a case for the military takeover of the shores of Lake Chad, in addition to an appeal for the federal government to address the root cause of insurgency.
Our main request is for the Nigerian military to take over the shores of the Lake Chad. We have identified some key areas in the shores of the Lake Chad. Areas in Marte local government, in Kukawa local government, in Guzamala local government, in Abadama local government, Bama local government, and to some certain extent, the Sambisa region, Tikwa, Mafua, among others.
The Governor of Gombe State, in an earlier visit to the Air Force Chief, offers to partner with the Nigerian Air Force in a bid to fast-track the total decimation of insurgents.
The very day the request got to us, we allocated 230 hectares of land, which you may rarely find in some other states. But at least for us, even today, we are ready to receive you, to give you a place to start work, and we shall be cooperating with you over time so that you'll attain this very good and noble objective in order to secure our people.
Without mincing words, the Chief of Air Staff assures both governors of the Air Force's preparedness to collaborate with other security agencies in ending the menace of insurgency.
I want to also assure you, and by extension assure the people of the Northeast, that the Nigerian Air Force, working with other security agencies, will continue to do everything humanly possible to ensure that the Northeast is secured, not only the Northeast, but indeed the entire country.
As the nation awaits the arrival of the 14 fighter jets next year, the news of the deployment of 10 out of the 14 jets to the Northeast will be a cherry one for the governors of the region.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, yes, we will talk about the state of things as they are playing out in the country. There are many perspectives as to why things seem to be going south. What can we do to steady the ship? Well, this morning we've got Right Honorable Umar Gali Naba, former Speaker of the House of Representatives. He's also the co-convener of the National Consultative Front, that's the NCP. Good morning and thank you for joining us today on the program.
Good morning.
Now,
Chamberlain, how are you?
Well, fine, thank you here. Well, different, perspectives as to what's happening, why are things happening. But yes, you did hold a conference not long ago, itemizing what can be done, the strategies to adopt to make these things work. But first of all, broadly speaking now, there are those who will say, and they believe that we've had strategies and measures, perhaps such as this, I stand corrected, before. So the thing is, why do you think this approach will work this time, before we delve into all of this approach step by step?
Well, first of all, let me disabuse the minds of Nigerians that the National Consultative Front is not out to destabilize this country. I read a lot of publications that National Consultative Front is going to embark on a mass action, and that we are going to instigate youths to protest against the government of the day. This is not true. What we had said and kept saying is that whatever we are out to do is going to be done within a democratic context, and we don't have any intention to embark in anything that may likely lead to breakdown of law and order. Going back to your question, it is true that a lot of effort has been put by various groups, associations, etc., towards solving the questions bedeviling our country, but with no tangible result. I don't believe that because others had failed in the past, that we should stop the efforts. We are optimistic that what we are doing is going to succeed, and with the benefit of 20 years of this democracy and how it has so far failed the people are sufficiently sensitized to come out and partner with us in these efforts. All we are saying is that Nigerians have not benefited from this democracy, and that we know the reasons, and we are ready to apply any leadership current in order for us to be able to bail our country out of this situation. It is unacceptable that 20 years of democracy will only leave us with violence. Every day you wake up, what you read and what you listen to is that hundreds of people are being massacred. Some are being kidnapped. Those who are not facing these two calamities sleep with one eye open. And the whole intention about democratizing is for us to be able to live in peace, in security, and to live happily. And there is virtually no Nigerian who is sleeping happily. And there's so much poverty and hunger. All of these adjectives I have enumerated are things that democracy was and is supposed to arrest, and it has not arrested them. Therefore, if in 20 years nobody can claim that his life is better off than it was in 1999, then something is wrong. And we know what is wrong, and we believe we can help ameliorate the problems with what we had enumerated in our strategy.
Earlier, when you started talking, you mentioned that, of course, you're not out to destabilize the nation with mass action and all of that, but do clear the air then on what you refer to in your address when you talk about mass mobilization, when you talk about mobilization and consultations, across the nation, across all divides, I would guess.
Well, consultation is consultation. You consult with people and intimate them with your intentions, what you want to do. And mobilization is nothing more than carrying the people along. You mobilize people by intimating them with your intentions and selling the message to them in order for them to be able to accept you and your message, so that you you go together with the people. So that is not mass action. Mass action, when you say mass action, the popular view is that some form of violence is intended, and it's not our intention to engage in violence.
You also said, just in your first speech, you said that you are looking at, solving the problems, and you said, and I quote, "We know what is wrong." So then please do tell us, what is wrong?
Well, the fact of the matter is that successive political leaders from 1999, especially at the executive level, have been running around democracy. They are not practicing democracy. Specifically speaking, they have obliterated internal democracy within our political parties. In the two major parties in this country, you will agree with me that internal democracy has become a casualty. And that is very dangerous because it is in the free competition for power that any country gets its best. So if political leaders at the executive level will hijack political parties and take away politics from the people, which is what they have done. Because a lot of times you'll see that political decisions that have to do with, for example, primary elections, take place at various government houses instead of the constituencies of the people. And that is the way it is supposed to be. People elect who they want or who they like to represent them. And that is it. But you have a situation today where a governor will sit in his government house and call people constituency by constituency and begin to dictate to them who and who will be fielded in order to contest elections for particular constituencies. There is a situation where a particular governor will buy forms for, because normally when people are going to contest, they buy forms from their parties. And when you go to buy the form, they will refuse to sell it to you. Unless the governor himself bought the form and give it to you, you are not eligible to contest. So I see no way of promoting our best people. I see no way in recruiting our best people into political offices. So people must be allowed to freely contest. That was what obtained even in 1979 to 83. And it is sad, it is a sad commentary on our polity that what was done 40 years ago is much, much better than what obtains today. So internal democracy must be restored in our political parties. Politics must be taken back by our people. People have lost their power. They don't have any say in this system, which is very, very dangerous. And that is why, all of these problems, particularly that have to do with the lack of internal democracy, which push our youths into frustration because they are not allowed to be mobile politically. Most of these things end up as security problems. And again, this lack of internal democracy effects is so pervasive. First of all, it has refused to allow the political parties to grow. Our political parties are not growing. And since they are not growing, it means that politics is not growing. Our economics, the economy is not growing. And even socially, we are not growing. We are not mobile. You can see this manifested in what is obtaining today. Banditry, kidnapping, and loss of confidence on the part of the people on government and governance, and even relationship between various ethnic groups in this country, is at its low ebb.
Okay, we'll still take you up on that part, but if you go, I'm looking at what you describe as your strategic objective, which you say includes, first, to establish a formidable mass movement that will result in the creation of an inclusive democratic political platform to groom and provide opportunities to all Nigerians to contest for elections in a competitive process. But he went on and on. Is this going to ultimately become a political party?
Yes, that is our intention. Our intention is to create, along the way, a political party and seek for registration from INEC. If that does not happen, it is also our intention to partner with political parties that have similar aspirations like what we are out to do, so that we put heads together and rescue our country.
So if that were the case, you know that there's going to be a huge challenge. I mean, having been there and seen how political parties, and when they refer to having the political structure to deliver, how are you planning to tackle that challenge?
Well, of course, establishing a political party and expecting it to be the way other major political parties are today is a great challenge. But don't forget that when these political parties started, they also began like the way we are beginning. They were not sure what was going to be the outcome of what they were going to do. It was only after the parties were launched and that whatever happened, happened. So I will not speculate because of the challenges that what we are out to do will not materialize. I'm an optimist. I believe that we have a very good message. We believe that people are today sufficiently sophisticated and sufficiently aware about politics and what they should do in view of this abysmal state of things in the country. So it's not going to be difficult, I believe, because what we are saying is that we have a message, and we believe that that message will resonate with the people, and we believe that people will come and partner with us. They have been calling us since before we launched this group, and after the launch, people have shown so much interest. We believe that things will work out. We are optimistic.
If I follow up on that, the people aspect, because, I mean, we've had several politicians who have held the opinion, some of them still do, that when you get to the field, it's a different ballgame entirely, because they say, given the way the economy is and the way politics has been over time, when those politicians approach them for campaign, they just, for some reason, ask them to either part with something now because they don't know if they'll see them 4 years on or after 4 years. How much of a challenge do you think that is? And if you're planning to change the mindset and ideology of the landscape and people, how do you intend to address that?
Well, we have a program of political education. Of course, what we mentioned is a great challenge in politics. People are given money for the purpose of making them to deviate from what they are supposed to be doing. And it's a great challenge. But don't forget that this is a country of almost 200 million people. Altogether, people that are involved with the political process are not up to 20 million. And we have in our hand the means with which to recruit newer people into politics, because one of the most effective ways of changing a system is by recruitment. Educate people, recruit them, and let participation multiply and multiply. That way, newer ideas will begin to flourish among newer people. A lot of people we know will not change their old ways, because a lot of people are not in politics for service. They are not in politics for altruistic reasons. And that will continue to be. But that doesn't mean that those of us who consider politics to be service will just fold our arms and watch this state of affairs continue. We will not do that.
But why is this about getting this political platform? What about those who think that, wait a minute, what's wrong with us going back to the laws, streamlining the amount of political parties we have, ensuring that you have credible and young people to come into politics, be strict about funding for political parties and transparency, strengthen internal democracy. So if we have fundamentals and laws that are enforceable and ensure these aspects are addressed, these political parties as they exist now, if you streamline them, we can achieve the same results that you want to achieve with this.
That would have been our preference. If we'll get the Electoral Act to confront all of these things and ensure that there is internal democracy and that refusal to enforce it and or violating the internal democracy mechanisms within the parties is sanctioned. You know, right now there are no sanctions. And sanctions must be put in place so that people maintain this internal democracy. Because like I said earlier, the internal democracy is very pervasive. When you don't have it, it affects all sectors of society. Even though a lot of people don't know this, but it is true. If you don't have internal democracy, it affects everything. If you look at, for example, even our legislative houses today, and you see the attendance, very, very poor attendance. When you watch the network news and the House of Representatives or the Senate, is televised, you see the attendance. It's very awful, because a lot of people that are there are not there because they want to be there. They are just fielded by their governors, for the governors' own political benefit and calculations.
Was it different when you were Speaker?
A lot of them don't attend.
What was the difference when you were Speaker?
It was much, much different. The difference is that when I was Speaker, you'll see that the House is always almost filled to capacity. At least we always have quorum. We always have over almost 200 people, 200 members attending the House and over, and nothing less than that. But today it's different.
Does that speak in any way to, Honorable, does that speak in any way to apathy, even in government? Because, of course, you know already that there is apathy among the voters. Does that also mean that there is apathy among the politicians who are in government?
Well, it is not apathy as such. It is rather for lack of interest. You know, when you send people to a place they're not interested in, and they don't even know how it works, they don't even know why it exists, then you have these problems. Some people see such positions as opportunities for them to become wealthy. That is all. They don't contribute anything. They don't debate anything. And a lot of times you'll see that there is no virtually, debate in the legislature today is no longer vibrant. People don't contribute. And even the state of the legislature is so abysmal. It's like they don't even check the executive properly. And particularly at the state level, there are state legislatures that don't even hold public hearings. And the people also don't challenge them, because people don't even know how to challenge the legislature. They don't know how it even works. They don't know what it is there to do, apart from the fact that they pass laws. But this passing of laws is a process, and people must know when these laws are being passed.
Okay,
but, the
we'll
legislators don't.
All right, we'll come back to this in just a moment. We'll look at some more of your strategies and how they apply in our present reality. Please join us again.
Katsina, Sokoto, Kebbi, Zamfara, and Kaduna states in the northwest are under siege by bandits, armed robbers, kidnappers, and cattle rustlers. This situation has more than anything drawn attention to the need for those in authority to address the menace as a matter of urgency. This perhaps accounts for why the governor of Zamfara State, Bello Matawale, chooses the occasion of the visit of the Emir of Kano, Aminu Ado Bayero, to the government house in Guzo to enlist the support of traditional rulers in the fight against banditry and other sundry crimes. After the visit, the governor and his guests highlight what needs to be done in restoring peace to the region.
The normal issue that we have at hand is insecurity, and by the cooperation with the traditional institution, we can be able to curtail the issue of insecurity, not in Zamfara, in Nigeria at large.
The traditional rulers have always been there, and I don't think there will be a time when they won't be there. They always assist in their own directives, right from the ward heads to the village heads and to the district heads to the emirs. This is the channel that has been in existence for many decades, and they use that for security and other things in the state and the country at large.
In neighboring Katsina State, Governor Aminu Masari is also worried not just about banditry, but the general issue of insecurity. His recipe for ending the scourge, which he preferred during his assessment visit to the newly established Special Army Super Camp 4 at Faskari, is for the Nigerian Army to up the ante in the ongoing fight against crime.
We know the fight against bandits and banditry is not yet over. We believe more efforts will have to be done in order to address, first of all, crush the bandits now.
The Chief of Army Staff. These calls from the Northwest are indeed not misplaced, and the belief is that if this challenge is effectively tackled, the region and other parts of the country will begin to focus more on development.
I think there are a lot of Nigerians who are very theoretical who in their minds think they live in another country where people have paid the price and laid the foundation for processes to work. Now, the same challenge that is behind healthcare system is the same challenge behind all these things that we're talking about here. So I'm saying that we have reached a threshold where we are going to have to take responsibility and we're going to have to put pressure on government with wisdom, not as antagonists, but as stakeholders who have a common future that is invested in whatever government is doing. I believe that that's where we are at right now, and that's a positive step.
Welcome back. Now, as lofty as some of these objectives may sound, but there's something that is of huge concern. Now, it's the fault lines that politicians take advantage of in this country. They pitch one area, one tribe, one group, one religion against the other, or something that is equally of something that needs to be addressed. Is this of concern to you, and what do you think of it?
Well, I was Speaker of the House of Representatives for 4 years. And that was not the way I ran the House. And most Nigerians bear witness to the fact that that House, a lot of people describe it as a cult. You know, a cult is any group of people that share a common objective and protect that objective powerfully. And this is a house that was constituted by all parts of this country, members from all Nigeria, of various religious and denominational persuasions, and different ethnic persuasions, and so on and so forth. And that is the way I feel Nigeria must be run.
Okay.
Our late Saj, Sheikh Usman Amfodio, told us that the surest way to bring strife among the people is to show preference for one tribe over the other, or over another, or over others. And this was echoed by his son, Muhammad Bello. And some of us, feel this powerfully. And it is very dangerous to show preference to your people over other people. And most Nigerians are religious or profess to be religious. And the two major religions, Islam and Christianity, teach us to be our brother's keepers. Do not do unto others what you would not do unto yourself. This is a philosophy that all Nigerians must keep, particularly when they are leaders. So it is very important that we take this message very, very powerfully.
Okay, now
going
there's
back
a...
to
Okay.
the,
Yeah, so go ahead.
Going back to what I was saying about internal democracy, what I have been trying to say all the time, because I have spoken on this internal democracy issue a number of times, uncountable times. And the effort is to ensure that good leaders, because the recruitment process, unless it is fine-tuned, you'll never get good leaders. If sycophancy is going to be the deciding factor in recruiting leadership, then this country must continue to suffer, because in a regime of sycophancy, nobody uses his brain, because there is no incentive for anybody to use his brain. But when there is competition, people use their brain. And it is in using the brain that countries achieve development. Therefore, Nigerians must insist that there must be internal democracy within our political parties so that we produce leadership that can be able to govern us well. Right now, there is almost no governance in this country. When you look at the size of the country, the size of our population, and the problems confronting us, a lot of these problems occur because there is almost no governance in the country.
Just a quick one on this internal democracy that you just mentioned now. I remember, and I'm sure you would as well, that prior to the 2019 elections, there was that push for a third force, you know, which came on. And then there was also the signing of the Not Too Young to Run law, which saw so many people come into the political space, and especially so many youths. The challenge at that point was internal democracy. It would seem like they all just couldn't agree on choosing one person. And of course, the third force, you know, many people still know what happened, you know, with that one. Talking about internal democracy now, this idea of yours, how is it going to be different if, you know, everyone is coming from all walks of life, all walks of political interests? What's going to be the difference?
Well, maybe that is not the way you should have put it, because the emergence of the third force have nothing to do with this issue of internal democracy. I think what that third force was out to achieve was a situation where instead of PDP or APC, another party fielded a presidential candidate and he's voted into the presidency. You see, internal democracy is within the political parties, not outside it. And what I'm trying to say is that politicians must insist that there must be internal democracy. Of course, a lot of people, particularly those who are in governance today, are beneficiaries of the failure to conduct primary elections within the parties. Because if some of these people contest within the party in a free election, they will not win. But because they have captured the political parties and they do with the political parties as they wish, you always find them so pervasively in the political system, whether as governors, whether as senators, whether as members of the House of Representatives. You know, in a free and fair election within the political parties, most of them would not win. But because the art of sycophancy has been perfected, and they always, you know, people always try to impress the governor that they are his best friends and he feels comfortable with them. Then when time comes for such elections, you know, he allows them to run, because the party is monopolized, it has become personalized to the governor. So that is what is happening.
Okay.
And in 1979, I was in politics in 1979 to 83. I never witnessed this kind of situation, because every time we wanted somebody to contest election, to represent our constituencies, we go and recruit the person. We recruit the person, we finance him, and we ask also for funds. We mobilize funds for the election. And once the party conducts a primary election, and whoever wins, no governor in my state, this is what I knew, no governor had ever come out and said that this is not my candidate. And at the same time, you cannot go to the governor and tell him that he should assist you because you want to contest the election. He will not, because the parties were strong and they always ensure that, you know, internal democracy obtains. Whoever is the preference of the people, you know, is what prevails.
All right, speak to us about this.
It is different today.
Okay, now, still on whether or not there's a need for, you know, this political front or platform, because there's a school of thought that believes that the Northern Bloc or elites or even in the National Assembly, they have a key role to play. Because when they talk about restructuring, I know they say it means different things to different people, and then looking at the leveraging on the strengths of this country, that different groups, different regions, different parts of this country, we all have strengths. They think that if the Northern Bloc believes that, yes, we should have this conversation, for instance, in the National Assembly, they have the key majority. So people think that if they agree, that we can make progress, because something that they seem to have a misconception about the ultimate intention of, quote unquote, the word restructuring. Do you share the same view?
Well, I think it is presumptuous to accept that the Northern Bloc in the National Assembly is opposed to restructuring. You see, I believe that what is important in every polity and in every social organization is that whatever your preference is, carry people along. If you have a particular preference and it is not going to obtain unless other people are involved, I think what one must do is to go and meet those people and say to them, look, please, I want you to consider this. I want this and that, because I'm suffering from this and that. And I also see that you too are suffering from this and that and this. And it will not be out of place for me to assist you to get this and that so that you get out of that problem. Why don't you come together and do something about it? And I believe that if it is approached this way, because what we did with the issue of the NDDC bill in 2000, it was an executive bill. And when it came, we sent our committees on petroleum and environment to the oil-producing areas. And they were there for almost 3 weeks. They did a thorough job, came back, and recommended that the percentages must be increased or should be increased. That is the contribution of the federal government and the contribution of the oil companies by 2% and 3% respectively. And the House of Representatives acted according to the recommendation of the committees under my leadership. And the Senate also did the same. And the bill was presented to the President, who refused to assent to it. And when he refused to assent to it, after the constitutionally stipulated number of days that it should be regarded as a veto, I mobilized members of the House of Representatives from the north, from everywhere, and what we did was to trade. The Northern Caucus wanted, or rather the Northwest Caucus wanted a commission called the Arid Zones Development Commission. And the North Central Zone wanted what is referred to as hyperdeck, hydro states. You know, these states, Kogi, Niger, Kebbi, and Kwara. The River Niger, on an annual basis, used to flood these states and destroy farmlands. So they wanted a commission to take care of that and canalize it and provide irrigation services and so on and so forth. So what I did was to call ask all the caucuses to meet, and at the end of the day, what happened? You know, we traded. The Northwest asked the oil producing states to assist with the Arid Areas Commission. The North Central also sought assistance over the hyperdeck, and that was accepted by all the caucuses. And that was how everyone subscribed to the veto override, because the veto was overridden by the House with 306 members. And that was the first time and the last time in this country that a presidential veto was overridden. And that was how it was achieved. It was achieved because of the cooperation we enjoyed from all the zones over what was going to happen in another zone. So that is the way this country should work.
All right.
So, but when it's not wise.
Yeah.
When you come to talk about restructuring, you sit down in one part of the country and begin to shout or to be talking to yourselves. You have to carry other people along, show them also what benefit they will make out of restructuring. And I'm sure it will be successful.
All right. Speaking about how the country should work, I know they talk about 2023 already, and at the moment there's this thing about who and where, where should the president come from. What is your thinking? I mean, I don't know if your group is thinking about this. How should we approach this? Should the president come from the southeast, the southwest, the north? How should we approach that?
Well, I think all the zones in this country have presidential materials. Yeah? And I believe that this idea that unless the president is from my backyard, I will not enjoy anything, I think must be jettisoned, because so far it has not helped any state. Today, Katsina State is one of the epicenters of banditry, in spite of the president coming from there. And when you go to Belsa State today, you ask the average person whether when Jonathan was president, he is better off. Mm-hmm. Or go to Ogun State and ask whether, ask the average person what he enjoyed when Obasanjo was president. So I think we should consider the best in anything, wherever that person comes from. So far, he has what it takes to be a leader in terms of, tolerance, consideration, acceptance, empathy. These are very, very important things in leadership. And I believe that all the sections of this country have people that have these kinds of qualities, that when they come out, people will easily
Will your platform consider that, zoning, or better still, what should we do with the federal character principle then?
Well, you see, federal character, I think, got evolved in order to give all sections of the country a sense of belonging. But I don't think it is right to compare for federal character with whoever becomes president in this country. And when you speak of the presidency, even though the president in Nigeria is very powerful, you know, and that is why we are saying that some measure of restructuring is necessary so that this competition for power, you know, will be made less sharper and sharper every time, because it is because the federal government is so big and so pervasive that this issue of where the president comes from has become malignant in our system. And I think time has come when we must devolve power to the states, and the moment you begin to do that, you know, the less sharper this competition for the presidency becomes, because it is very, very dangerous. I believe that there must be some devolution of powers. And
there are many issues that you have raised. Just one moment, sir. There are many issues that you have raised today, and all of them border largely on leadership. Now, in this country, since independence, we've had three different types of systems of government. We've had the parliamentary system, we had military system, and we have presidential system. And many people, depending on who is speaking, have divergent views on which is which. Now, some of the issues that you have raised over the past three questions border on the interests of several subnationals, of regions, and all of that. Is there a problem with the system of government we're running? Because it doesn't seem like everyone is interested in one Nigeria. Everyone seems to be interested in what happens in my region or in my state. And you alluded to that earlier in the conversation.
Well, you see, all politics is local. At the end of the day, everybody goes back to his home. And we have our homes in our local governments in our states. And that is why I said that the federal government is too big, is too large. So some devolution of power is necessary. Whatever the system is, whether it's presidential or parliamentary. A lot of people today prefer the parliamentary system because they feel it is more accountable. And I feel the same, you know. Particularly in Nigeria today, I experienced a lot of things when I was Speaker in the House of Representatives. I was virtually shut out because I didn't know what was happening with regards to our finances. I was never briefed. The Senate President was never briefed. And so a lot of things we have to follow. We have to devise creative means of getting information about our finances. And if it were a situation where the head of government is in the legislature, it would have been a different ball game. The presidential system is so sophisticated. And I had advocated a number of times that, look, this democracy we are operating, particularly this presidential system, but let us talk about democracy itself. This democracy has never been determined here historically. It's never determined here. It's just brought to us, and I said that, look, since it did not evolve from our history and our cultures, some people must be taught something. And I advocated that the National Orientation Agency must be prepared enough, sufficiently, to train those in the political process, particularly executives of political parties from the ward level to local government level to the state level and other stakeholders, so that they even understand what is democracy, what it is meant to be, where it is supposed to take us, and what will be the consequences if they follow it, they adhere to it.
Okay,
and
well,
what will be the consequences if they run around it?
Let me bring in this because we've just got about 60 seconds to wind down this one now. Could you tell us, many wonder, so are you, now that you're coming up with this platform alongside the co-convener, are you both still members of the APC, and they wonder that if you were neck deep in the activities of the party, would you still have found time to come up with this NC, the front?
Well, throughout history, you find out that even within political parties, you find out that there are groups that prefer the political parties to be run this way or that way. That is where you have what you call rightists, conservatives, and leftists who are liberals. And there are also what we call centrists. So we have divergent opinions as to how political parties and also political systems should be run. And when I was a member of PDP from 1999, especially to 2003, when I was Speaker of the House of Representatives, the president was a member of my party. But most of us in the House of Representatives who were members of PDP didn't sufficiently feel that we were made to belong, because every time it was the president that mattered.
All right.
And to the party, they will come with legislation and say that this is a party position.
Okay.
And a party position that a whole Speaker of the House of Representatives or a whole Senate President was never consulted, but yet they would want us to just legislate. And these are some of the things that put us together, put our heads together. We were constantly at loggerheads with the executive, in spite of being members of the same party.
All right, we need to anchor at this point. We do thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. Right Honorable Gali Umar Naba, former Speaker of the House of Representatives and co-convener of the National Consultative Front. Thank you for talking to us this morning.
Thank you very much, Chamberlain.
All right, and we'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
Weapons come into this country through enough sources. Some are smuggled into the country. When troops go into combat in war-torn areas, some of them manage to smuggle weapons in. When criminals attack armed security men, like it happened recently, when they kill them, they take their weapons. Also, because this society has an incredible level of criminality, some armed members of the armed forces and the police and NDLEA sell weapons to criminals.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily World. Now turning our attention to questions about insecurity, the strategy, the approach, the questioning by the president to the service chiefs. We've got Chooks Maha, a security consultant, joining us via Zoom this morning. Good morning and thank you for joining us today. Well, several perspectives about the position, what should be done, the meetings that have been held by the president with the governors, security arm of it, and even the service chiefs, as it were. Now, from what you've seen and heard the president has said certain equipments are bound to arrive. Just be a little bit patient. How do you internalize that?
Well, I think it's a step in the right direction coming from the presidency. When I'm talking about presidency, not just Mr. President alone, but all those who make up the presidency. However, I have said before, and I'll keep on saying again, we must see some element of governance in this. Because for security to work, it must come from the top, stemming down to the bottom. Mr. President is still the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He gives the final say. And if we read his lips and we know that he means what he says, I think it's a step in the right direction. But needless to say, we've had such things before. Equipment's on the way. We pray they actually come. We also pray that these equipments will not be obsolete, they'll be functional, and that the people to use them will be trained on how to use these equipment.
You know, many are trying to understand the thinking, the rationale behind the governors being quoted to have said they needed bailouts for security vote purposes in the face of all of these questions that are being asked about insecurity. Do you understand the thought process behind that?
Well, the truth of the matter, there are so many schools of thought. It depends on which quarters is being looked at. Are you looking at those who are in the business of security, providing security for the state? Are you looking at those who govern security, that's the politicians? Or are you looking at those who are the end users, the likes of you and I? So these are the three schools of thought looking at it now. The people, those in government, and those to do the job. Now, I've said, and I'm going to repeat here again, I'm looking at now the security of politics versus the politics of security. Now, we have a situation, not just in Nigeria, but the whole of Africa, where those who are in office want to perpetuate their stay in office. And they would do anything to stay in office. And that's when I talk about the security of politics. Then the politics of security is which of the security agencies will best serve for this purpose. What we have now in Nigeria in the northeast, south, all forms of banditry, insurgencies and all that are offshoots of the political system. Let's not kid ourselves here, because we have the willpower. If we so decide to put an end to all this menace, it can be done within 1 month. Just 1 month, it can be brought all that. But the question is, who is ready now, to take the bull by the horn, to ground, the officers, stuff like that. So the issue here is that governance, Mr. President must come out. He must have the willpower ready. He must read out the right acts to his service chiefs. And again, too, before that time or before now, have the resignation letter of all the service chiefs ready and give them their KPIs. Tell them to move down to these areas, all of them, not to stay in the lofty position there in Abuja. They move down to the place, use experienced soldiers, use experienced policemen, experienced DSS officers, and all that. I'm not sending, young, kiddies and, what we call spring chickens out there to go fight the war. We have people there. Nigeria has the best in Africa, and I want to see if we use what we have, we can win this war against insurgency, crime, and all forms of menace within our society. We have what it takes.
But
I'm very optimistic about that.
Yeah, so when the governors now talk about this security funds, as it were, many just suggest that, look, this is just sidestepping the main issue and attempting to throw money at the problem, which doesn't address the fundamental framework of what needs to be addressed.
Okay, I'll help you out. There is one fund that is never in any way audited, and that is security budget or the security fund. Any expenses on security is never touched or looked into. It just goes like that. So when governors are claiming, okay, security funds, security this, it's one way to milk money from the coffers out into the personal private pockets. Now, if you've noticed also within recent times now, almost all the governors are gangling up in trying to form their own security agencies, to run parallel with the federal security agencies. Why? Because of this issue of clamor of perpetual stay in office. It's not for you and I. Everybody's just thinking of their own selfish needs and how to go about achieving their own personal gains as we've seen. However, I want to say here, we have what it takes. The only thing that will happen is a little bit of restructuring, a little bit of training, and moral boosting of the men we have on ground. And I can assure you, we will get it. We'll get to it. We'll get it. It's just a little bit of it.
Well, there are many issues that you have raised. Okay. There are many issues that you have raised, Mr. Maha. One of them, you said that the different shades of insecurity that we have as a result of the political system. Just what do you mean by that? Because you know and I know that the issues of insecurity predate this president, where he said he needs to, take the lead role and all of that. So what do you mean when you say our insecurity is a product of the political system and that if we can correct that, it'll all be done with in 1 month? What do you mean?
Yeah, I'll give you a good example. One of those, it's my own personal opinion. I see no reason. They say those who live by the sword should die by the sword. Simple. If we have people who go into insurgency, who go into banditry of any form, blowing up pipelines or anything, if you do that, why would I need to grant you amnesty? That is one. It's a political thing. Now, why would I waste taxpayers' money for these same people who have misused and abused and destroyed taxpayers' infrastructure? That's another thing. Now, we find that also some people are making so much gains from what is going on. We're spending more of money which should have been used for other infrastructure, whether it's for the healthcare system, educational system in this country, now all fighting a particular cause, and that's the issue of insecurity. Now, are we saying we do not know those behind them? Because each form of insecurity has a sponsor. There are people behind it who supply them the money, who supply them the food, the fueling, the equipment, the information. They must have sponsors. So let's go behind, get the sponsors first, nab them and get rid of them. Now, we need to change the system where you commit a crime, it's not just a laissez-faire thing to make or give like maximum punishment. Maximum. You have to be, okay, we'll be talking about rape, increase the tenure of jail term for rapists. What about those who are insurgency? They must be taken up the same way. You have taken a life. We can't spare you. Your life must go. All those people you've lost. People have lost their lives. People have lost their property. So much insecurity. Capital flight from this country. People whose investments were there all gone. And now at the end of the day, these same people, you want to grant them amnesty? No. And that's why I think it's a political issue. We need to go back to the drawing board. Reframe what we need to have, get what we need to go, and put this shit out. And that's why people are losing confidence. We have what it takes, I can assure you. So Mr. Presidency and those around him should sit down, including the legislation.
Well, the president has also said, you referenced something the other time about the fact that those who are behind all of these insecurity issues, you said we know them. Who are the people that knows them? And it also begs the question, when you said the other time that, the issue of security, various security agencies ought to step in. Which security agency should play the lead role in which area of banditry? Which begs the question, of all the security agencies that we have, 27 of them, we've only been talking about a few of them, the police, the army, and all of that. What do you think is wrong with the others that they haven't really been as frontal as they ought to be? Oh, wow. Well, I guess we'll have to, hopefully get him back to have that conversation with us because when you reference the fact that, this is something that we have also talked about a few times here, about the fact that there are so many agencies of government. We only talk about the police and we only talk about the army, the Air Force and all of that. So what's going on with others? I think it'll be good, if he can also give us his perspective on that one.
Well, yes, we're hoping that we'll just get that connection back on. But, it's a separate issue and several meetings have been held. But we'll come back to this, I guess, in just a moment.
If there is any falsehood that the Nigerian people have swallowed, is the indivisibility or the facade, that, the military is one entity that, cannot be divided. That's not true. In fact, it is that same institution that is deeply divided, if we would speak the truth. Because if you are going to get the solutions to your problems, you would better come out clear and speak them out.
Yes, Mr. Maha, we are having that conversation about all security agencies in Nigeria, 27 of them, and we've only been talking about just about 2 of them. Why is that? Can you hear me?
Yeah, the truth of the matter is that there's this rivalry. Yeah, I can hear you. I know. The truth of the issue is that we have so much rivalry against, amongst the security agencies in the country for now. There's so much bad blood amongst them. Who is more superior to who and why is that the case? Now, the president, in the meetings, when he has his meetings with his chief of staff, the inspector general of police, the chief of army staff, the chief of naval staff, and all that, at that meeting, everybody's the same. But when they go back to their various quarters or silos, a different thing comes up again. So the question of who leads this formation there in any of these locations. If you're sending them down to the northeast or you're sending them to the south, somebody should lead. Now, a brief must come up, and this person who is to take this leadership role must be appointed among the joint chiefs. Once that is done and there's a harmony there, I can assure you we can get that. That's one. 2, the second one question which you asked, that you said you noticed that we have very few of the agencies that go down to go fight for the nation as it seems. Now, the truth of the matter, not all the security agencies are trained for this purpose. Some are trained for, gathering information. Some are trained for hard confrontational warfare. Some of them are trained to handle civilian warfare, as it may seem. But the truth of the matter, I must say, is that if you look at them, there is indeed some element of disparity by what training and the kind of weaponry they carry. So you must be careful who you send down for such offenses, as it may seem, and for what purpose. But what we can do, we can have a joint task force, a joint training where we mix both the police, the army, the navy, the air force, including members of the DSS, NIA, all together, and we have the best of it. We call it a general a task force, or give some other name. But we draw people from all the forces together to be led by somebody who we think has not only the background knowledge, but someone who is liberal enough to respect all the agencies they're present. We'll get the best.
Well, Mr. Maha, if you say that there is that rivalry among the security agencies, at the same time that the president has said that they must work together, they must collaborate, shouldn't we have some heads rolling already?
Yeah, like I said, at the top, there's no rivalry. With the head, there's no rivalry. But you see, the head of each of these agencies, like I said, need to drum this fact to their reportees who are going to work in the field. That is where the issue is. Because when they go out, it's a different thing entirely. With the heads themselves, they don't have a problem. You see the chief of army staff having a good chit-chat with the inspector general of police, vice also with the air force or the navy. They work, with so much harmony. But when it comes down to the rank and file, it's a different ball game entirely. So they need to see this to be exemplified by their senior officers with the junior ones below to ensure that there's harmony there on the war ground, there on the playing ground.
Also suggests from what you have said now, Mr. Maha, suggests that all of that conversation that the president has been having, especially the one that he says that they need to rejig the architectural structure of Nigeria, the security structure, architecture of Nigeria is a mirage. It's never going to happen. If only at the top, that happens, and then, the people who are supposed to execute these things, they are still at, variance, always in contention with one another, then it means it's a mirage, right?
Now, I'll tell you, there's a way out. If it's just one agency going, that is very possible because that agency takes full control. But having 2 or 3 agencies going down there for this common cause, it means that they must meet in a place where they have what they call a joint brief session together. They are briefed together. All the whole agencies are briefed together by the heads of these 3 people all together. And once that is done, they have this responsibility to work as one in unity.
Well,
there must be a common briefing ground.
As we wind down on this one,
agency come and brief all men together. So,
all right. Yeah. There's also thing that, look, they can have all the meetings, we can come up with all those suggestions, but they still think that as presently set up, we can't achieve much with this. And if we don't go back to the laws, the enabling laws, to adjust some things, we'll keep getting the same kind of results, but only in different shades. Do you share the same thought?
Yes, to some extent, yes and no, I do. What you said technically is correct, but practically, we can achieve something good. After all, I know in certain states you have what they call joint task force, and they work, in harmony, because the governors bring them together, address them as the head of security of the state, and he sees to it because it goes out on monitoring to do this. So, you see, the question is governance and the willpower. If we have somebody who takes charge over there, who goes to see the boys, out there.
That joint task force, or those joint task forces, they've got special provision beyond the regular remuneration that they get. So the issue of welfare across board is huge. I mean, we were told a couple of days ago that men in the front lines, they were getting, it was shocking, 2,000 naira a day. How do you deal with that? I'm afraid those things happen sometimes, but there you go. So we have real... Okay, just wrap your thoughts up on that before we go. Can you? Okay.
Okay then. It's true. The remuneration is very, very needful. Like I said, boosting their morale. Everybody knows that we all need these things. It's not just a question of, yes, you signed an undertaking when you were joining the military of the security agencies, that your life is for service of government, and the government can use you as it so deems fit. Yes, that's true. But you're still alive. You're a human being. You have needs. You have wants. So when you go for such missions, you are meant to pay special allowances. You might want to call it as an allowance, whatever allowances you want to call it. Make sure this money is come in. Make sure this money is going to the account and they're getting physical cash. And as you boost their morale, I can assure you, you get the best out of them. Everybody wants money.
Okay, then. Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts this morning, Chuks Maha, security consultant. Well, it will be time to take a look at what you think of the conversations we've had when we return. Welcome back. Let's take a look at this one. It starts with the comments from Nafiu. It says, in a country where sincerity of purpose from government officials are nowhere to be found, even at the local, state, and national levels, well, definitely insecurities, among other negative tendencies, are inevitable.
Well, Henry believes that Mr. Naba's point is that a roundly developed nation is the target destination. Good governance, the vehicle, while progressive politics make up the component parts of the tool. Sad that as it stands, there are no drivers nor available spare parts to drive this vehicle.
So the vehicle is in trouble.
Markwe? Okay.
All right, look at Joseph Dare's own. He says, this is how weak Nigerian system is. Our democracy needs to be redetermined. A huge chunk of responsibility cannot be placed at the center and expect sustainable functionality. This is why the struggle in every area, including security, we need a change.
And Felix Akban says the thesis that says leadership is our major problem is no longer tenable. Really? In a democracy, people get the kind of government they deserve. The shenanigans playing out in many states across the country supply ample evidence in that regard.
But I see Bukola saying it's not just about devolution of power, but more of having responsible people in governance. People who are there to nurture, or not people who are there to nurture their person's interests, but, to do a lot better.
And if we can just sneak this one by Anchor, it says, I think that one of the ways to check insecurity is to stop open grazing of livestock, since we haven't talked about that in a while. If we do that, herdsmen and farmers' clash will stop. It's high time we stopped this crude practice in the 21st century. A crop farmer is working to eke a living. His crops shouldn't be eaten by cattle.
So there you go. That is it today on the program. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day and please keep safe.
And I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Thank you so much for watching.